Welcome to the Spirit Rock Music YouTube channel. Today's video is about Bob Dylan's Shelter from the Storm. To me, this song signifies two fields of life. On the one hand, our well known world of opposites, struggles, and desperation, and on the other hand, the world of the living soul. Of course, this is a very subjective interpretation, and I'm keen to hear and read about your views, so let me know in the comments. I see a path described in the song from experiencing the borderline in our physical world up to a new state of being based on the immortal soul. The song was released in 1975 on Dylan's famous Blood on the Tracks album, which features other gems like Tangled Up in Blue and If You See Her, Say Hello. Whatever happens, each verse finishes with "Come in," she said, "I'll give you shelter from the storm." There is a refuge that is always open to us. When we connect to the immortal core deep in our soul, we take part in a realm that transcends far beyond everything that can be found in this material world. The border crosser marked by life. 'Twas in another lifetime, one of toil and blood. When blackness was a virtue, the road was full of mud. I came in from the wilderness, a creature void of form. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. The speaker is marked by life, toil, and blood, in which the wrong values count. Blackness was a virtue. The song may be a reflection on a previous state of being in another lifetime. Quote, "And if I pass this way again, you can rest assured I'll always do my best for her, on that I give my word. In a world of steel-eyed death and men who are fighting to be warm, come in," she said, "I'll give you shelter from the storm." He promises to always stand up for her. For me, a hint to the soul, to which he entrusts himself in a world of absurd fighting. Another quote, "Not a word was spoke between us. There was little risk involved. Everything up to that point had been left unresolved. Try imagining a place where it's always safe and warm. Come in," she said, "I'll give you shelter from the storm." This devotion is possible at any moment, if the maturity is present, that is. Whoever feels the need to prioritize worldly matters is postponing the path inwards. So everything left unresolved. The state of being of the living soul is free and untouchable for worldly trials and tribulations. Quote, "I was burned out from exhaustion, buried in the hail, poisoned in the bushes and blown out on the trail, hunted like a crocodile, ravaged in the corn. Come in," she said, "I'll give you shelter from the storm." What choice of images! The seeker is worn out and has reached his limit. From now on, he'll seek happiness at a different, inner level of being. The world has nothing to offer anymore for a matured soul. Making contact with the immortal soul. Suddenly I turned around and she was standing there, with silver bracelets on her wrists and flowers in her hair. She walked up to me so gracefully and took my crown of thorns. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. He has said farewell to all earthly wishes to a degree that he made room for the immortal soul inside of him. He now perceives her clearly for the first time. The crown of thorns may be a reference to Jesus. My impression is that Dylan sees Jesus as a state of being everyone can turn to, rather than a historical person that we may or may not believe in. Quote, "Now there's a wall between us, something there's been lost. I took too much for granted, I got my signals crossed. Just to think that it all began on an uneventful morn. Come in," she said, "I'll give you shelter from the storm." The first contact is not sufficient to permanently establish a new state of being. He loses contact again, as he could not tune in well enough to the subtle impulses the soul sends him. Got my signals crossed. The beginning is characterized in a very matter of fact, unspectacular way, uneventful morn. This soberness in spiritual matters is not untypical for Bob Dylan and reminds me of Isis, which I see as a song about initiation, and it is also covered on this YouTube channel. The contrast between the realm of the soul and the visible world sharpens. Quote, well, the deputy walks on hard nails, and the preacher rides a mount. But nothing really matters much, it's doom alone that counts. And the one-eyed undertaker, he blows a feudal horn. Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter from the storm. Worldly matters lose their importance from the perspective of the soul. Doom alone that counts. The horn that the one-eyed undertaker blows is described as futile in the official lyrics, while Dylan's pronunciation sounds more like feudal. Anyway, will he stay trapped in this absurd life, or will he enter the realm of the immortal soul? Another quote, I've heard newborn babies wailing like a mourning dove, and old men with broken teeth stranded without love. Do I understand your question, man? Is it hopeless and forlorn? Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter from the storm. Once more he witnesses the seemingly unsurmountable suffering, characterized by the beginning and end of physical life on earth. Will he find the path that leads beyond all this grief? Does he understand the question that life asks him? Does everything remain hopeless? The importance of the question may remind us of the legend of Percival. Percival, one of King Arthur's legendary knights of the Round Table, only becomes worthy of the Holy Grail when he has matured to ask the right question. What is it that troubles you? The soul keeps inviting the seeker to enter its realm, its energetic field, and to entrust himself to her. This also reminds me of Love in Vain from Dylan's 1978 album Street Legal, which is also covered on this channel. Following Jesus, salvation and farewell to earthly worries. Another quote, in a little hilltop village they gambled for my clothes. I bargained for salvation and she gave me a lethal dose. I offered up my innocence. I got repaid with scorn. Come in, she said, I'll give ya shelter from the storm. Rolling the dice for clothes is another reference to Jesus. Dylan chooses a first-person perspective. Jesus is not a distant saint from the past, but the seeker identifies with a path that Jesus exemplified and thus fulfills the task to follow this path. The salvation of the soul signifies the death of all aspects within him that are bound to the world, a lethal dose. The purity of the soul is not valued by earthly forces. Jesus is not recognized and thus mocked. Dylan has experienced personally what it means to commit to Jesus. For example, during his series of concerts at the Warfield Theatre in San Francisco in November 1979, which was, of course, after this recording of Shelter from the Storm. He played nothing but his new Christian songs in 79, withstood all the pressure from organizers and fans alike, and even received death threats. Scott Marshall gives a good account of these events at the Warfield Theatre in his book Bob Dylan: A Spiritual Life. How the world treats people who commit to Jesus is also described quite drastically in Dylan's Property of Jesus from the 1981 album Shot of Love. Crossing the border. Last quote. Well, I'm living in a foreign country, but I'm bound to cross the line. Beauty walks a razor's edge. Someday I'll make it mine. If I could only turn back the clock to when God and her were born. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. Last verse points to the way out of misery. When the soul is reborn, the seeker experiences the world as a foreign country, knowing he is called to a different state of being, bound to cross the line. Another strong image is that of beauty walking a razor's edge. From a worldly perspective, she is transient, relative, subject to change, and tied to her opposite, ugliness. In the realm of the immortal soul, beauty exists without an opposing pole, pure and untouchable. Making her mine, to me, is not linked to any kind of egoism or claim to personal possession, but rather points to internalization, spiritualization. When this is achieved, beauty does not need to be searched outside anymore. Well, so much about the verses in the song, and one last section of this video is about Bill Murray's tribute to Bob Dylan. An interesting version appears in the credits of the movie St. Vincent. I'll put a link in the description to that clip. I can fully understand if people cannot relate to that. To me, it is a magnificent movie scene, keeping in mind what a powerful song is processed here. The triviality of the plot of that scene by Bill Murray forms a strong contrast to the rich imagery of the song and the glorious goal. Watering the dusty ground and the dead plant, including the national flag hanging down, may be an image for the sublime energies of the soul descending to the earthly desert, where they may be applied for all kinds of purposes. In the absurdity of his situation, the hero holds on to his hope for salvation of his soul. Well, and that was it about this great song. I really love this song, and I'm keen to hear and read about your views, what this song means to you, what you associate with it, what you think of this interpretation, and what your own interpretation is. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. All the best for your own path. See you next time. Ciao.